talking about the presidential primaries right now. The New York State presidential primary is in April 12th. So if you want to take part in the primary, you have to be registered to vote. So please register to vote in the back. You can mail that in as well, and you can vote in April and then on election day in November. Third, I just want to recognize Aliyah Latif from the New York City Comptroller's Office. She's in the back right there. She's working with the Queens immigrant community, and she's been very involved helping BAAG, and also being a liaison for us to the Comptroller's Office. So if you have questions about the presentation, the Ticket to the Bank presentation, and other initiatives that the Comptroller's Office is running, you can reach out to her. Also, I just wanted to make an announcement for our lobby day. The Bangladeshi American Advocacy Group is going to be going to Albany on March 1st to lobby, to talk to state legislators, to assembly members and senators, to fight for the issues that we care about regarding immigration issues, regarding having Eid holiday extended throughout the entire state, New York State, to have halal food options in elementary schools and high schools. And also climate change is an issue that I know people, students in BAAG have addressed, so that's something we also want to talk to legislators about. So please sign up for Lobby Day for March 1st. You can sign up in the back. And I'd like to introduce next Mr. Jermaine Williams. He's the Manhattan and Staten Island Borough Coordinator for the Human Resources Administration.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good. Okay, it's kind of. You still on? Okay. So, how many people? Before I start, one of the questions about taxes somebody brought up. If my understanding that most of the time during this year, the libraries is a good place to go where they help you with filing your taxes. I think it's based on if your income is less than $62,000, that public libraries can actually help you fill out taxes for somebody who mentioned about taxes earlier. So, how many people heard about HRA? Human Resources Administration? Food stamps, Medicaid, cash assistance? Okay. So, HRA, Human Resources Administration, is pretty much a system that pretty much tries to help people get out of economic struggles, as well as help people get back to self-sufficiency. Through different arrays of services we provide, as far as employment, job training, resume writing, we have a large variety of services that we provide in a nutshell. So I'm going to just go through them real quick because I know you got questions for me, and I don't want to take a lot of time, so I'm going to try to make it quick, all right? So our first service that we provide is Adult Protective Services, APS, and this service is pretty much available to any New Yorker, 18 years of age or older, that has some mental or disability concern and needs some help with assistance as far as living. One of the concerns you may hear about when it comes to APS is people who hoard. And that's somebody who has sometimes you may think they're homeless, but they got a lot of garbage. The one thing that's really a problem with this is that people who hoard things, they usually bring feces and mice and bugs and things to the house. Okay, guys, how you doing again? All right, so I'm going to go through this and then try to get a lot of questions you probably have for me. So I mentioned APS, which is Adult Protective Services, that pretty much help individuals who are physically or mentally in danger of harming themselves. It's available for people 18 years of age or older, and it's pretty much comprehensive. We have this service called burial claims, which actually help people with financial concerns when it comes to burial costs. If somebody happens to pass away and need a little bit of help with burying them, we have an office that also helps with burial claims. Our Office of Child Support Enforcement is pretty much because we believe that it takes two parents to raise a child. When you got to go to the doctor often, then you're going to pay a higher premium because you're going to have a lower out-of-pocket cost. Simple, straight to the point. They're always coming up with different programs to fit a person's category depending on their income, but it's always changing, so I always say go online to get more information about that. Our next service that we have is pretty much a big one. It's SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as food stamps. And this is a program that is pretty much based on income, but the one thing that's great about it is that a person can actually go online, a facilitated enroller, to put in an application, and you do not have to go into the office. I had a question mentioned to me a lot of times. Matter of fact, I'll wait till the end of that. So you can go online and fill it out. As of January, I don't want to ask anybody that, but if anybody ever heard of when we send out, when a person applies for SNAP, they sometimes get a notification letting them know, hey, you're going to get a phone call between this time, and that phone call never comes. So in light of that, now it's a problem with us because we, whether with the client, because they stayed home all day waiting for a phone call, and the phone call never came. Our office can take care of that. It's a really easy fix, but if you don't know how to reach out to it, you wasted a day home, you still didn't get your interview, and then you probably get a letter later on saying, oh, your case is going to be rejected because you never had your interview. So in light of that, we came up with this concept called On Demand. It started on Staten Island first, where it worked out very well. It's going to actually start March 1st in Washington Heights in Manhattan. And after Manhattan, it might be the Queens of Brooklyn. But just to give you an idea, is when you fill out an application packet or recertification, now you call on your own convenience from 8:30 to 5 o'clock. When you fill out your application, you submit it in, you can just call us now and complete your interview, and somebody be there to take your call, instead of staying home all day waiting for a call that sometimes doesn't come. Our last service, which is going to probably be the biggest one that we have with the most concerns, is our cash assistance or public assistance program. Now, a person applying for cash assistance is pretty much is based on income, based on immigrant status, citizenship. You're pretty much mandated to a work-related activity. But the one thing with this program is that if you don't qualify for cash assistance, it does a separate determination for your SNAP and a separate determination for Medicaid. So if you go to a job center and you fill out an application, it takes care of all three services, and it works out whatever one you don't qualify for just because you're not sure. I always tell somebody if they're not sure their income or what they can get, is to go in to apply and let us tell you what you don't qualify for. Even when it comes to immigrant status, your immigrant status for individual is always changing. So for you to say, oh, this person didn't get it because of that, I may not get it, is not fair to you. So I always say go in, let us tell you what you don't qualify for if that's the case, so that if something happens to change in the long run, you know that you're able to apply for it now. With our rental assistance, a person can apply for a one-shot deal, which is considered back rent. So if you happen to run into hardship and you owe back money and you need help with the back rent, you can always come to HRA, fill out application. It's a one-time request for money for a grant to get some assistance. You fill out the application, take it from there. Most of the time, a person filling out a cash assistance for a one-shot deal is pretty much in court, or housing court in other words, and we have a RAU, which stands for Rental Assistance Unit person, in housing court, that once you go to court, if your landlord happens to be trying to get you evicted, that you can go up to and ask them, hey, I need help with my back rent, how can you help me? So they can actually kind of screen you to let you know, okay, you know what, yeah, you will qualify, or unfortunately you may not, and tell you why, so you don't waste too much time. We also do one-shot deals for utilities. So if you have a shut-off notice from Con Edison, Keyspan, the same concept. You come into an office, you fill out an application for a one-time payment for utilities, which is Con Edison and Keyspan. Now what happens is we only pay up to 4 months to avoid a shut-off notice when you're paying for utilities, and then from that point you work out a payment agreement with Con Edison. Once that's pretty much done, it's out of our hands and you're pretty much okay. Now, if you're undocumented, yet you have a child who's born in this country, you can always put in a one-shot deal for the child. And it doesn't hold no fault in their immigrant status. Sorry about that. So some of the information I talked to you about is in this book here that we have in Bengali in the back, so you can always take one and get information on it. And as somebody mentioned earlier, we have language interpreters. And it's your right to have an interview as well as an application in your language that you feel comfortable in to get our services. If it doesn't happen, you call 311 or 212-331-4640. Let us know what happened, and we can pretty much address it. Now, one of the concerns that was earlier somebody asked me about was housing. Now, The only housing that HRA pretty much work with as of immediate 24 hours is a person who has HIV and AIDS or domestic violence. In light of our commissioner now, or in the mayor's office actually giving us DHS, we're actually working on different other entities where people who are homeless or living in a shelter can try to get housing a lot easier, where HRA is pretty much helping with, it's like a 70-30 split where we'll pay 70% of the rent and the client is responsible for 30%. But that's actually a person living in a shelter, and they qualify for what is called a LINK program, which is considered living in the community. And these are just programs that we have to help individuals who may not be able to afford high rents to qualify for these programs. But just please keep in mind that most of these programs are based on income, citizen status, and anything like that. And that's it. So is there any questions you guys have?
Question is,
Okay.
as mayor initiative, there are over 7,000 or so
Units.
units of affordable housing. How the community like this, Bangladeshi community, will be able to get the advantage of it?
Okay, so one thing I'm gonna definitely let you guys know is that the world of web is a beautiful tool to use. A lot of affordable housing are usually on either HPD website or NYCHA website. Now, keep in mind that it's a process for them to get out all these affordable housing, but when they do come out, you have to fill out an application for it. Now, when it comes to NYCHA, it's probably one of the hardest ones to get into because there's always a list and there's priority. So at the same time, I'm not saying that to discourage you for trying to put in the application because you never know, but anytime you hear of something becoming available with affordable housing, I would say fill out the application, put it in, so at least you'd be on a waiting list for if it comes around. As you mentioned, I don't think it's really based on nationalities or race, how they bring forth where they're going to put them at. It's just the availability of where they can put the affordable housing or units that they have available that they can make affordable housing. Now, I go to a lot of meetings, and one of the things I cover Staten Island, Manhattan, and we do have a coordinator that covers Queens. And just realistically, if you don't have developments where I would consider people calling projects in an area, it's going to be really hard to find a lot of affordability because it would be based on a landlord pretty much saying, you know what, I wouldn't mind taking somebody who's getting a rent subsidy to come in there. Now, in light of all the concerns they have, actually came out since the mayor's office brought forth these new initiatives for affordable housing. Anytime you get a rent subsidy, whether it be Section 8, FEPS, HRA, it is actually against the law for a landlord to refuse to take your application based on that. Or if they say, you know what, well, if you give me some money under the table because I don't take HRA's security voucher, that's still against the law because it's not discrimination against subsidies that people need to help make ends meet. When it comes to, I don't think I mentioned this, but when it comes to the one-shot deal, we also do first month's rent, security, and broker's fee. Now, the security is now in a voucher form, which basically tells the landlord that you can't cash this money until the individual is out of the home, and there's damage to the property, or the person lived out their security amount, then the landlord can get it. At one time, I believe there was a time when we did a security deposit and the landlord would take it, cash it, the client would leave the apartment perfectly fine, nothing's wrong, and the city wouldn't get the security deposit back. So that's why now we have it as a voucher. So once the client leaves, we'll come in, see if there's any damage, and from that point they can get the security deposit. If you use a broker to help you with finding housing, we only give 50% of the security deposit, so that could be a slight deterrent for a landlord taking somebody who's applying for rent subsidies. But that's just something that they started because of the fact that how much money was going out from it, and that's pretty much how that works. Any other questions?
There is one question. There is many people, they apply for that housing, city housing, but it is
Come down, right?
waiting case is quite long, it's like 9 years. The gentleman, he's been waiting last 9 years. Whenever he called, they say they had the interview, all the paperwork, everything done for quite long. And every time he got the answer that
They're just waiting for
yeah,
availability.
because it's 9 years, how can our community people get faster?
Well, okay, just keep in mind, like I said, when it comes to, especially when it comes to NYCHR, they do have priority. People in domestic violence shelters, if they find, usually it's pretty much a priority. And like I said, people living with HIV and AIDS, and they actually start, they do have programs now with veterans. So it's not saying that you shouldn't apply and just be patient about being called up the list if they happen to get to your number, but it's just that it's such a demand for NYCHR apartments because of the affordability of it, and it's based on your income that it makes it that it's a worth waiting situation that you want to wait if you do fill out the application. It's unfortunate that it's not a faster turnaround, and I'm hoping with the new changes about affordable housing. And remember, affordable housing is based on new developers putting up a large building, just let's say, and because he got a stipend or a grant to make affordable housing there, one of the key things I tell people to keep in mind is affordable to the community. So if you're living in a community where the income is pretty much like $60,000 to $100,000 a year, affordability, so you still might not make ends, you still might not be able to afford there because of the income within the area. And that's how they pretty much base affordability when they say affordable housing. So, I mean, it's just the way New York is. Hopefully they're going to try to work on more rent freezes where people don't have to worry about raising rent every year because your income will go up every year. That's the one thing that's the biggest problem with that, but hopefully they're going to be working out on that.
But is there any way faster the process? Like 9 years, the gentleman waiting 9 years.
Yeah, it's really not when it comes to NYCHR, and like I said, I don't know if they, and just keep in mind, even with 9 years, there's still people who's on the application before that person. A lot of times it probably age out where some people who's on the list so long, they found something else, like, oh no, I don't want that apartment, and then it can move up faster. But to say that it's going to move up faster, I really couldn't say, because that's a whole different entity from HRA. I'm sorry if you can hear me.
Yeah. Is there anything like somebody is waiting for quite a long time and then they have an elder at home? Can they apply, not the apply, can they inform that we have a family member who is elderly or the child, anything?
No, right. So basically saying that there's a certain concern in the household, an element, would that help speed up the process too? And honestly, I really don't know, because keep in mind, seniors they do have senior living facilities where people can go to. So to say that they're going to have it to speed up a process on the application, because you have, just say, a child, and that's usually how priority works. If you have usually it starts with family, and it goes down to individual. So if you have people, and then it goes based on the apartment size. So if you have a 2-bedroom, and say it's just you and a child, that's going to probably go to somebody who has a mother, and 2 children. That's pretty much how they work out priority.